And we are live, and unlike Nick Ricata, we're not late, nor are we gay. How you doing, everybody? It's your boy. It's been a while. I thought I'd just stream because I'm alone in the flat. Excellent. Nice bit of alone time. I've had a week off. I thought I'd make more videos this week, but oh well, procrastination and stuff like that. Plus, I really did need a break, so anyway, back to work next week. Back on the shift. Back on the grind. Being a wage slave, although I don't really believe I'm a wage slave. It's only a meme. But anyway, we'll wait for a few more people to stroll in and have some fun. So basically, it's just a catch-up stream. So like, I get to talk to you, you get to talk to me in the chat. We'll as per usual, I let you guys ask me questions about stuff. And because I'm in a particular mood for not giving a fuck, and I'm gonna maybe be too honest for my own good, depending on what subjects come up. So, but anyway, I've had some ideas recently, actually, for something, but it will never happen because it's just not possible at the moment. The conditions are not right. But I'll talk about it because it's only a dream anyway. It's a pipe dream, and yeah, there's stuff I'd like to do that I can't do just because of time and other things as well. No, it's a shame. So many ideas, so little time. But yeah, I need to stream more often. I really do. But when you work where I work, I'm always tired at the end of every shift, pretty much, and I just can't be bothered. So it is what it is. But I'm trying, guys. I'm trying my best for you. I know there's a lot of things that are going out in the world that you'd like to hear my takes on, but I only have so many hours in the week. What do I call myself? Libertarian, pro free market? I mean, why not both? I don't know. It's the most accurate label, but really, I'm just on the right, in the truest sense of the word. I don't know what you would call yourself, Everless Sunglasses, though. I mean, what are you, quote unquote, dissident right? Or are you just right wing? We're all just right wing, although some of us here are perhaps not as right wing as they used to be. Not naming names, but I don't know. I've often thought maybe I should actually do a video on what the right actually is. Because there are people at AA who think that, well, I don't know. He might not believe this anymore, knowing that guy. But, he thinks there's no such thing as a right. It's just whatever's against the left. But as we all know, the whole term left and right is a 200-year-old construct that it's just, I feel like it's outliving its usefulness if it hasn't already. And it just doesn't really reflect the modern world anymore. I genuinely don't think that there's a proper left and right anymore. It seems to be the case that there's a lot of murkiness and grey areas. There are people who call themselves right wing who are not right wing economically in the traditional sense, that they believe in collectivism in that regard. They believe in state action and meddling with the economy. People like Orban, for example, he's not a pro free market guy. He's not at all. He's basically a socialist economically, which is weird. He spent all those years trying to get rid of the communists, and it ends up being a commie anyway, at least economically. Although socially he's conservative, although it's conservative in the sense that he's fine with what goes on in Budapest. We all know about Budapest, guys. But then you've got people who are left wing, who that they are essentially your typical leftists when it comes to economics. Again, state planning, state intervention, stuff like that. But then you'll have their social views are anything but leftist. Although arguably social views shouldn't really count as left or right, really. I don't know, but arguably, but they're not. They are as they are as against degeneracy as say the next alt-righter, but they are left wing. They don't consider themselves right wing. And I guess you would say it's the new SDP. You know, the in this country, the Social Democrats are they called? Yeah, Social Democratic Party, the newly constituted ones, because they joined with the Liberal Party in the 80s, which is one of the worst things that ever happened. Then you've also got people who are right wing economically, who are essentially SJWs socially, and that was. I think the prime examples of them would be the people who used to run the LP in America, in the Libertarian Party. They're now no longer in charge, thank God. Now we have the Mises Caucus, who come with their own baggage, but they are actually libertarian compared to these SJWs, who are just pinkos. But, you know, can capitalism ever conserve? It's an economic system. It's not a philosophy. So, again, like, if you know, it's an economic system, right? It's the free market. So as long as there is a demand, things will be conserved. Now, if you mean culture, if you mean politics, well, capitalism can't do that because it doesn't have a philosophy behind all that to conserve any of that stuff. If that's what you mean, if you mean like buildings and I don't know, products and stuff like that, yeah, like if there's a demand, it will be conserved. If there is no demand, it will go away and you'll have to come up with something new. But in regards of culture and politics, well, not really, but that's not what it was like. I won't say it was designed, it was sort of, it evolved to become. Like, it didn't evolve a political philosophy. It didn't evolve anything like that. That's down to, well, the people who call themselves conservatives to conserve, but they don't conserve because they are incapable of doing so for various reasons. That's not the fault of capitalism. That's the fault of the people who call themselves capitalists who are conservatives, basically. You could be a capitalist and not be a conservative, you know? Problem with the SDP, they were founded by Shirley Williams, who's in favour of removing the protection for Salman Rushdie. She believed in is this the new one or the old one? If this is the new one, then Jesus Christ. You see, I don't agree with anything the feminists put out at this point. But yeah, I am not surprised that Shirley Williams wanted to see Salman Rushdie get killed, basically. It's a miracle he survived. That guy is a Chad. You know, regardless of his opinions, he survived getting stabbed. So far, touch wood, you know. Touch wood that Salman Rushdie survives. That guy was based on the Islamic question. And we need more people like him. Oh, right. See, I didn't realise that they'd split from Labour in 81. I wasn't taught about the split when I was learning about stuff. Michael Foot was a communist. apart from the anti-EU stance, which is always good, Labour back then were communists, and apart from maybe the higher echelons who were always anti-Soviet Union, kind of like how Tito was anti-Soviet Union, a lot of the grassroots, a lot of the more middling types, they were compromised by the communists. You know, the Eastern Bloc. We all know it. That's why when that former Czech general came out and said that Jeremy Corbyn was a communist asset, he was probably telling the truth. Whether they knew it or not, some of them definitely knew they were assets and didn't mind it. But I don't know about Corbyn. He seems dumb enough to not know that he was, to be honest. But equally smart enough to be one, because the guy is basically a Duginist at this present moment. You know, he supports Iran and all these evil regimes all over the world. How can he not be a communist asset or a former one? You know, I mean, Dugin is a former commie. He is a commie, he's a National Bolshevik, but yeah. But yeah, capitalism ever conserve? It's not. Capitalism is an economic system, not a philosophy. The only way you can conserve culture is to create a strong culture and pass it on down to the next generation, make sure that they are stronger than you were, basically, to answer your question. That's it. Raise good kids and have loads of them, Oh, there goes my headphones. So there's that. Nothing more, nothing less. You know, I think a lot of people think that capitalism is like communism in the sense that it's an overarching, all-consuming philosophy when it's not. I think that's something that Louis Levi used to say back in the day when I used to watch him, and he was right that I can't tell you what the philosophical. I couldn't tell you what capitalism's take on the form, Plato's theory of forms is, because there is none. There is no capitalist philosophy about the meaning of life. That comes from other things. That could come from more secular things, like, say, for example, existentialism or absurdism. It could, although to be fair, you could be religious and be existentialist. Or from religion, you know. But anyway, I think I've probably just repeated myself ad nauseum there. But yeah, interest. We barely see a sight of him these days. Well, I stopped watching him a long time ago because I think me and some of the British lads got into a debate with him on Twitter, and he was being so condescending and rude and dismissive of everything we said. I think it was definitely in regards to something about America's geopolitical situation. I don't know. It was something about geopolitics for sure that we got into a debate about, and I didn't like his attitude, so I just distanced myself, basically. I think that's what it was. He's very much America first, which is fine when you're in America, but when you're with other people who have our own issues in other countries, it can get grating and really annoying. I think I've mentioned this before on streams about Americans. But he's really insufferable about it to the point that, apart from the left in America, America as an idea as a whole can do nothing wrong. When obviously that's not true. I remember he had a debate with Sargon. It wasn't a debate; it was not even an argument, a discussion within a larger one. And I think Sargon or maybe it was Louis. One of them brought up the fact that America had or did or did not have colonies back in the day. And Louis was like, full on, we never had colonies. That's not true. That's bullshit. Impossible. We never had any. Name me one. And then Sargon, because he can't debate, or at least he couldn't back then, he can now. I think he mentioned Iwo Jima or something like that. Now, I think Iwo Jima has a base on the island at post-World War II, but it's not a colony. What he should have said was, well, there's so many of them. I mean, Hawaii was a colony, before it became a state. Philippines, Cuba, what else? I'm trying to think now. Basically, a lot of the Caribbean islands that they got from Spain and Pacific stuff as well. Guam used to be a colony before it became an independent state. Although I think there's part of Guam that's still under the control of America. There's all these countries that he could have mentioned, but he didn't. Like, America did have colonies. And in fact, it was a colony at one point, and after it became independent, continued to colonize the continent, or at least the middle part of it anyway, because Mexico had already been colonized. The Brits and the French were already doing Canada, so they went westward. They conquered land from the Indians or settled places that nobody lived before. They took stuff from the Mexicans. I mean, they did everything that the European powers did, just within their own local area, really. And then they branched out. But then, for some reason, we're not allowed to call that a colony. We're not allowed to call it colonization or imperialism or empire building. It's different when Americans do it. It's bullshit hypocrisy, but Liberia was not a colony. Liberia was something different. That was an artificial state designed to house African Americans, basically. It was the whole send them back to Africa thing. I've tended to know him to be an anti-interventionist, but also to be a realist, that all the world's superpowers will compete for I remember him being not necessarily anti-interventionist, just when it's necessary. It's his idea was what the British used to do, which was a splendid isolation, which is something the Americans have not been able to get down at all. So, you'll hear the whole perfidious Albion nonsense. So the idea is that the British only intervene, or at least get into wars to weaken other powers. which isn't actually true. British foreign policy was very simple: keep the balance of power in Europe and keep the world's trading lanes open, so that obviously we can benefit first, but then by and large everybody else can, because the idea of keeping the balance of power in Europe was that there was no big empire that will crush everybody and result in tyranny. Basically, that was the idea. I mean, yeah, it was primarily, Britain first, but if the idea was, well, if we protect ourselves and these other people, they will protect us from these other crazy kingdoms that might come along. I guess it's a bit of an egoist approach if you think about it, and that's how it worked basically. So we had a little empire building over there. I mean, again, if Perfidious Albion was a thing, we wouldn't have allowed the French to have their empire in Africa. And believe me, at one point there nearly was a war started over, I think it was the Sudan. In 1899, we nearly came to blows, and that brought the two countries together to make sure that could never happen again. Like, again, and Belgium, for example, if we really were threatened back in the day by outward expansion, we would have stopped them. But we didn't. We didn't even stop Russia from expanding in the east, and we were always worried they'd try and take India, which they wanted to. I wish we had nukes back during the Crusades. Well, then you would have destroyed the overrated Byzantine Empire as well as by proxy. But I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is, mate. History happens. Make sure you're in the driving seat of it. That's what I've always said. So, yeah. I've been out a bit recently in my city, and it's just reminding me about the speech I made at NOMOS back in the day. No, I don't know if anybody was there in Manchester for the first NOMOS event, but basically it was about retaking cities for the right and from the left, obviously, and how do we go about doing it. And I was meant to actually make a video based on the script, just a reading of it, so people could see what I said. I just never got around to it. I still have the script somewhere, and there's so much commie propaganda. Now, obviously, most people don't buy it. I wouldn't say that Manchester's a communist city. I mean, Liverpool is very Marxist. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of them around, but a lot of them, to me, seem to have come from outside. They've it really increased in activity when Media City was developed in Salford Quays, and when the BBC, ITV, Granada's separate. Well, it's part of ITV, but it's their Manchester studio. But the rest of ITV came up. Channel 4 came here. All the big mainstream media places and TV channels in Britain came up here because it's cheaper. And then all these fucking yuppies, these your typical middle class champagne socialist who's progressive socially came up. And now you can't go through historically working class cities like Manchester and Salford without seeing, rainbow flags and God knows what else. And that all comes from them. These people are either former students who don't come from here, or here's my friend who I really dislike, the ice cream man. But anyway, we'll have to ignore the guy. Or they come from down south, or they come from other areas, because they're attracted by the investment of Salford Quays and other things like that. And they're not native, let's just say, even though they're English. Whereas Liverpool is completely and utterly a lost cause. I think we could win it back in theory, but in practice, I don't know. But anyway, but again, like, you walk down the street and you see posters and you see stickers. Like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, today I did see some I don't know if they weren't left wing or not. That's the problem. So I did see some people protesting the vaccine, the COVID vaccines, and I thought you were several months too late, if not a year late, because they were trying to stop, or trying to raise awareness of compulsory vaccines for kids. and at least for that one anyway. I don't know. And I just thought, is this the best non-leftists have got, at least non-SJWs have got? And then I was in another area of Manchester, of the city centre, not far away from them, and I felt like it was 2005 again. There was this stall. I'm not going to name names. I don't know them, but I remember what their newspaper was called or website, and it was like being in a Alex Jones forum or some kind of conspiracy forum from like 2005 about the Rockefellers and stuff like that. And I'm like, mate, really? Is this the best the right have got? Because you go all the way over the city and look at lampposts and places where flyers have been posted, and you see all these Marxist and socialist meetings and gatherings and events and stuff like that. I mean, in my speech I said all this stuff happens, but the idea is it also makes them out to be bigger than they actually are. Like, if you put all this stuff around the city, you'll think the city is run by them. I mean, that may be so with Andy Burnham, but he's a Blairite, so it's a little it's complicated. But they do make themselves out to be much bigger than they actually are, and I'm not seeing anything from the right to counter that. I mean, yeah, you have like the conservative clubs, right? Especially in the universities, but they don't do anything. They just do student things. They don't do what the Marxists and the Labour and the SWP societies do, and then the parties as a whole, where they're actually trying to galvanize their own support and build it. They don't seem to be doing that, because they don't try to build a presence. They don't try and engage in the propaganda battle and stuff like that. They don't do it. And this is a city that's ripe for that, in my opinion. I mean, I remember when I met Paleo Angloism when we were doing Nomos and stuff and stuff in general, and he even said that, if we move some of our people up here or down here, depending where you are in Britain, this could be a good place for a right wing network to grow and prosper because of the history of the city, with the free market, libertarian, classical liberal stuff, with Cobden and things like that. Like, you walk around the city and you'll see it, like, and it still to this day has an influence on people and the way people are, like Mancunians. Like, it's there, but you can only live here and see it. Like, I think it's fertile ground, as I was thinking today, but unfortunately it's dead because nobody's bloody farming it, not tilling it. But but then what can I do? I thought, well, I don't know anybody who can help me organize this stuff. I don't know how to organize an event like that. I have no experience doing it. But then I got to thinking, well, if the speech failed to get people to network with me, maybe I should just do a show. So at first I thought, like, well, this is the dreams that I was talking about earlier in the stream. So first I thought, well, I could do something about Manchester, maybe. I don't know. Talk about Andy Burnham and how horrible he is. But then I thought, well, hang on. I watch the China Show, which used to be the ADV podcast. By the way, apart from being a bit very naive and blue-pilled on the West, although they're certainly not communists, because they're against the CCP and they constantly attack communism, stuff like that. Serpent ZA, Winston and Lao Y86. But on China, they're excellent, and the format of their show is interesting too. And then I thought, well, I also sometimes, not as much as I used to, I watch China Uncensored and China Unscripted, and they have a spin-off from China Uncensored called America Uncensored. And I thought, well, what if I combine the two shows together, the China Show and China Unscripted, or scripted in that, or China Uncensored, sorry, in that case. But maybe, I don't know, either do both live or video only or live only, and do my own thing with a person next to me for chemistry and stuff like that. So I'm not doing it on my own like I am now. And because if you watch the China Show, it's just Winston and Lao Wai they just sit in front of a green screen with, like, they'll have videos to play and articles to read and pictures and stuff, but they'll also have B-roll footage of China that they've shot or people shot for them, and it's a visual experience. There's also good memes, good in-jokes. in the show, they've got like a lot of sound effects that they play, and I've got a soundboard, although I don't have a video one, unfortunately. I can't clip things. I need to know how to do that. I really want to know how to clip. I think StreamYard has an ability to do that. But I want to do something like that. But I don't know anybody who has the charisma, who has the similar take on things that I do, because I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm not exactly like a lot of the other people that we all know. As you guys watch me, you know I'm not like Harry Ann, I'm not like Scrump, um I'm not like any of them really. You know, I've read different books, I've watched different people, you know. So but I want to do a show like that, and I thought, who could I do it with? And I thought, well, if Harry Ann wasn't busy, he'd be the prime person to sit down with in front of a green screen and do stuff with, because I've met him several times and we get along, and there'd be chemistry there because we know each other. But I don't know anyone, unfortunately. So until I find that one person who is similar but not the same as me, who's able to perform on, oh god, no, that don't say perform on camera. That sounds wrong. Who's able to have the charisma to carry a show with me? Because I don't want it to be a show where you've got like these people who just they have no charisma. It feels like they're droning and they seem awkward. I mean, yeah, I'm not the most articulate person, but I try to put my personality into things. You know, like I'm not monotone, and I don't go, well, you know, in this next story, this happened. Unfortunately, it's just you know, I don't know how to be. I don't know. Basically, a lot of the newer hosts on, I don't want to, I don't want to insult, I don't want to insult them, but some of the hosts at the Lotus Eaters, they're not exactly the most charismatic. They're not like Sargon or Callum, who have charisma, natural charisma. Although to be fair, they've got more experience. It does take a while to get out of his shell. But I don't want the person to be like that, if you know what I mean. So I'm not chatting shit. I'm just trying to point out some of them have issues with carrying a show, but they're learning as they go, and that's, you know, I understand. I used to be like that. You know, you do start off as like wooden and unsure, and then you get used to it, and your personality comes out basically, or you develop one. You know. So anyway, I've ignored the chat for a bit too long. Oh dear, Sadako, I did not realise you're a Scouser. I mean, Manchester didn't break either, but we have blue areas anyway, like in Altrincham. Oh no, if Altrincham might be Lib Dem, but there's South Manchester area. There's areas in South Manchester that are blue. You know, there's conservative areas for sure. What do I think of Liz Truss? Says Finian. It will not be more of the same with her. Some of it will be the same, but not all of it. So I don't know. I mean, she's the best of the bad bunch. I think I don't know. With Sunak, it would definitely be more of the same. He was a full on Boris guy. He's a charlatan. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is literally just a leftist. He's not as bad as Penny Mordaunt, which, believe me, if Penny Mordaunt came in, it would be like Jeremy Corbyn being prime minister, basically, or not even Keir Starmer. That woman is an SJW, and how she got into the Conservative Party, I'll never know. This is why you need to gatekeep. You can't let fucking leftists, commies like her, into the party. And notice, like, I haven't had a chance to make a video on this on the leadership debate, the leadership thing. I don't even know if it's over yet. I need to double check. Did she win? Well, apparently she's set to win, so that's good. Because, you know, she's probably better economically than he is. Hopefully she'll steer away from the statist policies that he implemented as chancellor. But yeah, anyway, I need to get back to my rant. So, did you notice because I haven't had a chance to talk about it? I think I've made 2 videos, or at least I filmed myself do 2 takes, and then just didn't have time to do anything because events kept changing and people kept falling out. Yeah, I mean, regardless of who wins, the Tory party isn't going to win the next election. Labour won't win it either, but there'll be a hung parliament, and who are they going to bring in to form a majority? I don't know, but notice when Penny Mordaunt was at her peak, more stuff was coming out about her, about how unconservative she is. Then she starts changing her appearance, so her hairstyle changes. She's trying to come across as more like Maggie Thatcher, which is funny because when I was in the car with somebody, they had it may have been LBC, it might have been Talk Radio, it might have been Radio 4, actually, I don't know. It's all crap. And one of the idiots on there, she was Northern, she was probably from here, actually. She sounded like she was from Greater Manchester or Lancashire. She said, Liz Truss gives her Maggie Thatcher vibes, and that's bad. Or was it could have been Braverman, one of them two. That's bad because because it's Maggie, the Iron Lady. I mean, Liz Truss, Iron Lady, right? Okay, but Mordaunt came across as really well, and I think that was just before she made herself out to be more right wing than she actually was. It might have been just before the image change, or when it was gradually starting to happen. And it's like, had she just been herself, she could have galvanized a lot of that support within these cut individuals like this woman, But like, unfortunately, with the current Conservative Party, what we have is that the best that the party has to offer is Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman. Now, they're fine. They're okay, but they're not Prime Minister material. They're not statesmen, are they? They're not ready for it, or in many ways, their skill set is not that of a prime minister, but of something else, like a cabinet minister, subverting positions and stuff. Like how Kemi Badenoch subverted the women's inequalities ministerial job was fantastic. Loved it. She was reversing it and throwing it back at the left. It was amazing. I don't really know much about Suella Braverman other than she seems decently right wing, but a lot of them will big themselves up to be more than they actually are. So it remains to be seen about her. But again, they're the best candidates. But then you've got other people who would be on paper better candidates than they are, but they choose to do nothing. They choose to stand and support them and not put their money where their mouth is, not take risks. They just want to be in the background and not actually do anything. So people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, people like Steve Baker, pretty much the entire Tory pack bench that isn't, former cabinet ministers, they all could do a pretty decent job as prime minister or cabinet minister, and they have no ambition. They are too in it for the party. So Jacob Rees-Mogg calls it cross. Is it cross part? Is it party responsibility? Something like, basically that all members of the party must have responsibility and back each other, basically, when it comes to votes. Although that doesn't stop him from voting against things that he truly believes in, like, voting against abortion and things like that, which I don't give a shit about, whatever. But it's a bit weird how there's this party consolidation that must happen with big votes, but with stuff like that, he's fine with breaking. And you got Steve Baker as well, who just does nothing. And that's the problem. The best that they have are spineless, unambitious wastes of space. And until they bring in new blood who are willing to do stuff, which, to be fair, Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman are steps in the right direction, but they can't do it alone. They need more people to help them. They need more people being, because this is what you have to. This is what they do. Where, MPs aren't chosen in the vacuum. They don't just appear out of nowhere. The local party votes for them to stand for election. We need more based people to stand up for these positions to become the next MP of their area. I think that's how it works. I might be wrong. So until some people go in there and can subvert the party and help Badenoch and Braverman, it's not going to go anywhere. You'll still have the people who should know better doing nothing and the wets controlling it, because they're the ones who bother to do stuff. And what they do is terrible. And yes, Richard is right. The right are lazy. I don't see any alternate party ever coming to power in this country because they're so fractured and none of them are electable. Yeah, pretty much. Do I agree international finance is pushing the woke agenda? What do you mean by international finance? What does that mean? That's a broad thing to say and means many different things. Banks sold the LGBT flag, BLM's heavily funded Bank of America. Look, all right, this has been debated ad nauseum, and it's something the right all should know. I think even AA said this. They do this for psychic profit. I remember he did a really good video when he made good videos back in the day about this. It's psychic profit. It makes them feel good, and they do it also for keeping up appearances. A lot of them don't. Most of them don't give a shit about any of this. That's why they don't do it in the Middle East. They don't do it in China and places like that because it doesn't fly there. Although China will pump loads of money themselves into the cultural Marxist agenda, which is what we should be calling it. It's communists, not woke. But anyway, I don't know. I'm going full Mallard there. It's the banks will only do it because of I think Razorfist has been mentioning things like ESG and stuff like that. I need to look into that more to understand what he says. But there's some other more financial reasons for supporting this because they can get subsidized. I think. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But ESG is apparently some big part to play with this. Primarily, it's just a grift, primarily for most of them. But you do have some companies that have fallen for it and do truly believe in it, like Lush. That's a British perfume shop, chain, and I think not Oreos, the ice cream, Ben and Jerry's. They're not even. I wouldn't even say they were even compromised. I think they are always like that, But they do it here because either they have to, or they feel they have to, or it's a grift, or they do truly believe in it. There's many things. It's hard to explain. Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland is the closest thing UK has. Yeah, true, but their idea of conservatism is like what 1689, which I'm not strictly against in regards to the Bill of Rights, but minus the anti-Catholic stuff, you can get rid of that. But that's the problem, isn't it? Northern Ireland is like still stuck in the 1600s. No offense to you guys, but you know what I mean. It's the attitude. Hello, James. Nah, I don't want to toot my own horn. Hello, Sir Adamantine. In 1990, no one died. In 1991, no one. I don't know that reference, Sadeko. You got to explain that. I didn't know you stream. Wait, I was one of the reasons you started your own channel, James. I could have sworn you were there before me, but I don't know. I don't think you have to be well produced and have human. Oh no, I'm not asking to be well produced. I mean, the whole China show thing. It's just a basic green screen with stuff. Like it's not complicated. It's a much more expensive setup than I've got, but it's not difficult to do on the cheap. What do I think of For Britain being disbanded? Well, I mean, it was going to happen, mate. They were useless and did nothing for whatever. Politicians are going to bend us over and hose us, no matter what party. Yeah, but again, like they're less likely to do that if we subvert them and steer them in the right path. So what else? Oh, was it Anne Marie's party? I remember years ago in 2018, I met somebody who was part of that party, and he was saying we're the fastest growing party. We had this many votes in the last election. Watch this space. We're gonna be big. I completely forgot about this guy. Well, now they're gone, and that was 2018. It shows that if you don't do active campaigning and create networks and stuff like that, you'll go nowhere. I think they ended up being like a glorified YouTube channel. And she had the YouTube channel as well, didn't she, for the party? And it's like, well, you're not out there trying to, create an actual like voter base. I don't know. It is possible to create a big third party or fourth party. I mean, UKIP at its peak, they'll never win. That's a problem. And the problem is that a lot of conservatives want people who still believe in that party, they want parties like that because they think it steers the party in the right direction, and it doesn't. All it does is give ideas for the West to stay in power because they'll promise what UKIP wants, for example, Brexit, but then try not to go along with it. They won't try to deliver it. Now, David Cameron, in his hubris, allowed the referendum to take place because he thought he'd win. And then he could say, well, I've got a mandate from the British people. Brexit's not happening, guys. Only the British people sent 17 million fuck offs, and he had to resign. But still, the party tried their very best to scupper it and sabotage it. The Brexiteers within that party should have took it over. They should have gone in there, all guns blazing, peacefully in Minecraft, and purged the wets there and then. But they didn't. They didn't at all, did they? They allowed the wets to run the show because, again, they're useless, lazy, unambitious idiots who have too much loyalty for their own good. Or at least loyalty to the wrong people. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, third parties at the moment now. Until somebody can come along who's kind of like Farage, but a Farage who has ambition and wants to actually be the change that he wants to see, well, it's not going to happen, Nobody's been elected yet, James. There's not been a replacement for Boris. Yeah, it sounds like Mussolini, James, doesn't it? All women shortlists should be made. I think any shortlist like that should just not happen in general. And I think, yeah, that act in general should be gone. It's fucking cultural Marxist crap. That's no place. No, it's not Israeli money, Moody. Nothing to do with Israel. It's Russian and Chinese mainly, actually, because they're the ones that fund far left organizations all over the West. It's not the Israelis that do it, because if the Israelis did it, they wouldn't exist, would they? If a commie party took over, so let's say the commies finally took over the Democratic Party properly and not the Pinkos, Israel wouldn't last because the commies hate the Jews and the commies hate Israel for many different reasons, it would be the same if the Duganists took over as well, or if the Chi-Coms took over too. Again, a lot of the left's funding, a lot of the so-called woke stuff, it all goes back to the Soviet Union from like the 1930s and 1940s all the way up to the 80s. And then also the Chinese took over from that when they started to make money. The biggest mistake that Nixon ever made was the one China policy and bringing China into the fold. Never should have done that. Should have left it to be the backwater that it made itself to be, and just concentrate on Taiwan. We'd be in a much better place. The left would not have the funding that they're having now. Or at least they would still have some of it, but not as much because, again, China wasn't as rich as the Soviets. That's where it all comes from. And you only have to look at what Dugin does going... To be fair, he goes to the left and the right, to be fair. But you only have to see what he does with going to Greece with the Marxists, I think it was. Then he'll go to Western Europe and talk to, quote-unquote far-right organizations. And then look what the Chi-Coms do. At home, it's Maoism and nationalism. Over here, it's social justice. Whenever you look at their propaganda, and Russia's been trying to take influence in this too with their war propaganda in Ukraine, it's always like Al Jazeera plus here, isn't it? It's social justice, cultural Marxism. And they always use those types of arguments against the Americans. So they'll always go back, oh, you're racist because, BLM, stuff like that. But they won't do that to their own people. They have their own version of it anyway in China, they are Marxists. They're their own versions of SJWs, and if you watch the China show, you'll see just how pathetic it gets. Like, if SJWs were more violent here than they could be, we'd be like China. So, like, people get beat up in the streets just for being whatever flavor of foreigner is unpopular that year or that month or that week. So if they don't like America, if the CCP declares that America is the enemy, Americans pretend to be Canadian. But then if it's Canada, pretend to be British. Uh, Chinese people have been attacked in the streets for dressing up in non-Chinese ways. Just recently, when I watched the latest China Show episode, this woman got attacked for wearing a kimono. And then also the Chinese internet. If you look up the Great Translation Movement, they got triggered over bloody Nancy Pelosi. In fact, some of their reactions were worse than any SJW. At least SJWs don't slap themselves in protest, Corporate Wokeness Woke Inc. Vivek Ramaswamy. I've heard of that book, actually. Politics in this country is very tribal, and yet until the two-party state system breaks apart, you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, yeah, that's true, but my belief is that we should use the two-party state against itself. That's what I think. But if it breaks apart, that's fine. Oh, the day-to-day, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. It was me, Sargon, and that one dude that lost his mind. There's a lot of them who lost their mind, James. Was it Spino by any chance? Yeah, I think you probably mean Spino. Spinosaurus kin. Yeah, they did pass gay marriage and abortion in Northern Ireland. Although I don't really care for gay marriage personally, like whatever, But abortion, yeah, in Northern Ireland, yeah, not good. But I think they only did gay marriage just to beat Labour. That was a nah, we got there first, that kind of thing. It was, like how Blair introduced mass. This is what he said, didn't he? He said that he introduced mass immigration to stick it up to the Tories to mock them. Well, David Cameron did that with gay marriage to flip the bird at the Labour Party and say, well, look what we did. Another first for the Tory party. Because, the Tories always gone about how, and to be fair, it is funny and true. Like they had the first female prime minister, and they're the only party to have female prime ministers. And they passed gay marriage. And I think there may have been some other things that Labour claimed to have always been bastions of, like some other fringe stuff like that they Labour claims to be the guardians of, that the Tories swoop in and do first. I'm sure there was another thing. Maybe it was abortion. I think it was that. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Karl Marx was not Jewish. Yeah, his dad used to be Jewish. His dad was, I think he used to be like a religious leader. Then he converted to Lutheranism. So remember, bear in mind, in the 19th century, the idea of being Jewish is different to what it is now. So Karl Marx would not be considered Jewish. And in fact, he hated the Jews with a passion. Well, it wasn't a Jewish invention. You had socialists predating him anyway who said similar things. And Engels was not a Jew, you idiot, chief. Engels wasn't a Jew. And he was a communist. He's one half of the big two, is he not? Like, have you read any of the tracts that Karl Marx makes about the Jews? Like, he literally thinks capitalist is Jewish. That's what he thinks or thought. Yeah, the kibbutz were well, they had to out of necessity, but then they've opened up since then anyway. I don't know. Adultery should be a criminal offence. What? That's so. I'm sorry, Finian, but that is a really stupid take. What next should be made illegal? Betraying your friends? Come on. That's whether we like it or not. That is something that's always going to happen because of human nature, unfortunately, mate. And I don't think we should outlaw stuff like that. Like, it's one thing to outlaw, say, for example, murder, because that's killing people, but adultery, really? What good does that do? It's not going to stop people from doing it. that just does not make sense. I mean, it didn't work in Rome when Augustus did it. I don't know. I don't fucking know. It's It's stuff like that that'll get us nowhere. It just does not make sense. It might become, yeah, exactly. It's no better than bloody Sharia law at that point. The only way you deal with adultery is social shaming. That's it. Like, all we need is a bit more social shaming in the West, and we'll start things will soon start changing. That's people need to start growing a backbone, start talking back, and we also need to learn. And it's not just the right; it's people in general. We need to learn no because no. So when the groomers go, oh, what do you mean that we can't have children transitioning or what have you? Just say no because no. They can't argue against that. It's it's using their own kind of argumentation against them. No. Why? Because no. No. It's immoral or whatever, No because no. Move on. What can they do? But scream and moan. And that will get us into, and that will help push a lot of stuff as well. Well, I mean, adultery is an intimate situation between two people. But anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other things that's happened recently that I've thought of. Oh, I have recorded 2 videos actually, guys. So one's about Andrew Tate. It's not that long. It's just pointing out that this guy is nothing new. We've seen loads of Andrew Tates before, like Roosh V, for example. Literally, is it not? Does James will know this? Maybe Sadako, maybe some other people. But everyone remembers. You remember Roosh V, what he did, how he became famous. He was a pickup artist, kind of like what Andrew Tate is. I don't know if he calls himself one, but he sounds like one. And he said controversial stuff. He got into internet debates and stuff like that to build up this audience to grift off of, and then he disappeared once some things were exposed about him. Does that not sound the same as Andrew Tate? Only I don't think Roosh V ever got banned from platforms. He might have done, actually. He may have been banned from Twitter eventually, but by that point he was basically a nobody. Like, is that not the same thing? And then what was the other video that I recorded? Oh god, I forgot. I did record another one yesterday. Oh, what was it about? I've forgotten. I've forgotten what my own first video I recorded was about. What was it? What happened recently? I swear it was about a current event or something. It was no, it was more about a general topic. I just can't remember what it was. Crap. But when I sat editing it, I will remember. It's all on my computer ready anyway. And I'll be making an appearance on Proper Horror Show's channel. I will be watching Psycho and reviewing it. I mean, I already liked the film, so it's a foregone conclusion, really. And I might be appearing on the channel in another way, but I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. Woe's a national. I mean, I don't know about his economic policy. To be a national socialist, you have to be, that has to be the racial component and the economics and socialism to back it up. I don't know. He certainly has he certainly has their social views, but does he have their economic views? The forums were taken down. The pickup artist ones. He went born again. Oh god. Maybe Andrew Tate will find Jesus in 5 years' time. You never know, guys. But yeah, I'm sick of hearing about him as well because, again, it's the leftists and normies just falling for the same stuff again. I wouldn't even say that Roosh was necessarily taken down. Like he was, he kind of burned bright and then ended. Coach Red Pill was a pickup artist, yeah, but he always had something more about him. He didn't just do that. He also did politics and stuff like that, which gave him a lot of staying power that other pickup artists didn't have. To be fair, I mean, he literally disappeared for ages and came back up again as a Putinist shill in Ukraine, of all places. I still can't believe that guy is still alive in that country. Unless he's moved out. I just can't believe it. Like, are you mad to be doing Lord Haw stuff in the country you're against. You know, in the part of the country, the western part that isn't Russian controlled. It's funny that, isn't it? The bit that's least degenerate as well. But hey, I don't know. The part you'd want to live in more than the other. It's so interesting, but I don't know. Wait, so you don't like what fornication as in promiscuity or just sex in general, Finian? I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember Rollo Tomasi very much, or Donovan Sharp. There was another name I wanted to reference in the video that I've just recorded but haven't edited that I just could not remember. I think he was this one guy. He would go to Japan and be really aggressive and with the women there, when he didn't need to be, because he was trying to play on these stereotypes that Asian women are like, submissive and will just take it. Even though, as we know, if anybody's met any Asian woman, that's far from true. Social conservatism may have gone from government and the mainstream media where it's, well, I'm sorry, but the average person of the United Kingdom doesn't want to outlaw fornication and adultery, mate. You know, they're not socially conservative in your sense, in your extremely. I mean, I don't know. Are you a Catholic? Judging by your name, if you're from Northern Ireland, you look Catholic. Most British people are not like that, mate. And saying stuff like that is not going to endear them to you. They're going to reject you. Now, don't get me wrong. Normal British people don't like the idea of kids taking hormones. They may not like too much promiscuity while they do it themselves, but in moderate amounts. They may look down on OnlyFans and stuff like that, but they don't think any of it should be, apart from the grooming stuff, like all the rest of that stuff, they don't think it should be illegal. I'm sorry, James, I was reading you then because I think you've got a point there. And this is the problem with this statist bullshit. Why use the state when we can give the people the power to socially shame, and then that will do most of the job for you? You can just change the culture. You don't need to ban any of this stuff by law. The state doesn't really need to do anything other than allow people the freedom to lay down the law. Yeah, I know asexuals exist. That's a non sequitur, mate. All we need to do is really give the honest, normal person a chance to win back the streets, essentially, and to sort out society. Because, I don't know where this idea comes from in certain social conservative circles that the state was the thing that drove the culture, that it was the politicians that did any of that stuff. No, it's the people. Culture is downstream. Is it? Politics is downstream from culture, isn't it? Yeah. The culture is already moving ahead way before the politicians catch up. It's the people socially shaming or doing the opposite, laying down rules and enforcing them, that creates that culture. Yeah, keep the kids out of everything. But yeah, you're right. Just let the people do it. The people will sort it all out. You don't need the state to tell them what to do, because a lot of that is already self-evident in their lives. I don't know. Also, what helps is keeping dads in the family. That could help. But again, it's all about incentives, isn't it? And a lot of the problems we face with stuff like that is as a result of the state as well. With nudging people to go into do this behavior and that behavior. There's only so much you can do. I don't know. But again, if the right wants to regain power, like the true right, whichever faction it may be, wants to gain power in this country and win back, you have to win back the culture. But banning adultery will get you nowhere. You will sink like the Titanic, you know, essentially. And that's just a fact of life, man. Because this is the thing. This is what. Yeah, well, you can't get rid of it, Richard. There's always going to be a family court because people have families and have kids. You're never going to get rid of it. You know, that stuff has to exist because there are legal issues. You know, we have laws around it. Therefore, there must be a court to handle it. What needs to be changed is the people who run it, basically. Perverse incentives is a big thing. If one doesn't want a bunch of single mothers, then don't. Yeah, exactly. Don't subsidize it. It's true. Getting rid of the welfare state will solve a hell of a lot of problems. Although, here's another video idea. Speaking of the welfare state, so for years I've been thinking about, you know, if we want to get rid of this. Well, I'm not an anarchist really, but if you want to get rid of the state, say if you're an ANCAP, right? Or well, so like, or you're like a libertarian, you're a small government guy. How do you begin to get to that minarchist state? How do you get to the point from overbearing mixed economy or full-on totalitarianism to your ideal state, which is small government, you know, only barest services, you know, like an army or you know, a civil service, that kind of thing. But beyond that, not much. How do you get from that to here? And don't bear in mind it has its tentacles. The state has its tentacles in things that affect people, right? You know, in the West, depending on where you are, there are a lot of people who are far too used to the government doing things for them or being there for them. You know, we have a lot of nanny states. So how do you get from that end of the spectrum to the other? Well, I think there's two ways you can go about it. You can either go full cold turkey, like what happened after the fall of communism in the Eastern Bloc, where essentially they ripped the band-aid off and had to let the market, let society sort itself out. That's why you had Japanese terrorists buying helicopters in Russia, you know, that kind of thing. That can work. You do end up essentially with societies like Poland and Romania. They're not perfect, but you know, they're not going to be leftist anytime soon, and some of them are even open to free market policies. But then you'll also have other countries that were scarred by those times and blame the opening up of society, the freeing of society, essentially, as the reason for the poverty and stuff like that, and not the fact that they were already in poverty and communism. The end of communism meant that, well, you know, reality struck for them, you know, and that they blame that, and that's Hungary. That's why Orban is in charge. If he was free market, he wouldn't even be empowered because, from what I know about Hungary, the average Hungarian voter, they are not free market. Even though it would be better for their country, they're currently dealing with an economic crisis or one that's coming very soon because of the state meddling in the economy, and also with Russia and stuff like that. They don't want it because I guess they blame that for the poverty after, well, at least the temporary poverty anyway, after the wall fell. But it wasn't capitalism's fault, but I don't know. But then you have, I cannot remember because Lucian from Freedom Alternative, he's been in Central Asia, and I can't remember if it was Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan. They had a dictator for 30 odd years, pretty much. It was the same guy. He was there during the days of communism, and he died after, and he was there long after, and then he died a few years ago. What did they do? The elites who didn't want totalitarianism anymore, they quietly weaned people off it. They're taking small baby steps, and it's working. In fact, it's probably working better than, say, ripping the band-aid off. At least for them, for their culture. It worked for, again, ripping the band-aid off worked for the Poles, but it didn't work for the Hungarians. And maybe weaning it would have been better for Hungary, but not for Poland. Who knows? And I'm thinking, well, where we are, we're not all the way there yet. So would it be best in Britain if we, say, wean people off. Say we finally took power, we wanted to relinquish state controls and stuff and create, the free market paradise, right? Like we all know that the country can be. Well, you can't just rip the band-aid off in this country, unfortunately, because there is millions of people who are stuck on welfare in that trap that the state loves to put them in. You also have people who are subsidized by the government by whatever reason. Again, it could be like James says, single mums or businesses. We've got the minimum wage. We have people who believe that a minimum wage is the be all end all, even though the minimum wage in this country is a very, very recent invention. I don't think we had a minimum wage until Blair. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was made in the 90s. Well, also, what else? The NHS as well. That's a big one. That's a bone of contention. How do we get in and start dismantling that monstrosity and make sure that the private system that takes over is ready and capable of doing that? Because if we rip the band-aid off of that, it's not going to be pretty. Because at first, it will be too expensive because there isn't many private health options in this country. They exist, there's just not that many. Eventually there will be loads, and then eventually health insurance will be cheap for everybody. But how do you get to that point? You have to, in my opinion, for this country, bit by bit, you have to wean people off it. But that's a lot of hard work, and we have to make sure we win practically every election. But luckily, terms last 5 years in this country, so if the Chinese can do stuff in 5 years, I don't know. Why am I against the NHS? Oh boy, where do we even begin? Where do I begin? First off, it's a state-run entity, which automatically means it's bad anyway. 2, it sucks billions out of the taxpayer every year. We overpay for it, and what do we get out of it? We have the worst healthcare system in the West, probably, where you have excruciating waiting times. The quality of care, depending on where you are, but most of it is not good compared to, say, the Netherlands or Germany, or I'm trying to think of other places where they don't have universal healthcare like this, but they have something different. There's other European countries where it's not like this. I think even the Scandinavian countries don't have an NHS like we do. The closest example I can think of is Canada, but that's more state-driven, funnily enough, or province-driven. There's that. The quality of the treatment is terrible. The practices that they undergo is terrible. I mean, just look what happened during COVID. They were literally leaving people to die who had cancer and just converted all the hospitals into COVID wards. Even only now, recently, are we admitting that the lockdowns and the abandonment of the Hippocratic Oath, which the NHS did willy-nilly, most of the doctors, 90% of them, were fully on board with leaving many people to die because of COVID, and it is a grift, yeah. But that's the thing. But this is the thing. Like, it's not free. It comes out of your taxes, and what do you get out of it? And the thing is, every British people, unless you are like a committed Labour supporter or communist, 90% of British people, although they do fall into the cult, unfortunately, because there is a cult of the NHS, which is another reason why I dislike it. Everyone knows it's not up to snuff, but they don't trust the private option because they've been brainwashed into thinking it's all bad. And that the private option is the American option, which is not true. The American system is not a private option. It's actually it's basically state health insurance, which is originally what the NHS was going to be. It was going to be Obamacare originally, until Clement Attlee came in and changed it all. Oh, and it destroyed it destroyed our economy post World War II as well. By the way, there's a reason why we were still undergoing rationing in the 50s. One of the reasons was that America didn't have to undergo rationing, or any of the other countries, but we did, because all the money was going to that. Oh, and also the Vietnam War wouldn't have happened if we had the spare funds left over, which was going to the NHS, because the Brits fought the Viet Cong first and nearly beat them. But I don't know. there's many other reasons. Oh, and I think Trigger Hippie mentioned this. There's a weird thing in NHS where old people die for no particular reason. Just thought I'd put that out there. I'd say your name, Li Lee. Do you think NRX and Dark Enlightenment is a gateway to neo-Nazism and fascism? No, I don't think so. The gateway to those two ideologies is just leftism, basically. Again, like if you've done any reading beyond the usual historian, even some of these historians, actually, no, a lot of the mainstream historians will mention this, but then try to worm their way out of it. But if you've read a little bit about the conditions of Nazi Germany, for example, and Italy, a lot of the people who were card-carrying fascists were at one point card-carrying communists, and vice versa. There were people who went from one side to the other continuously until one side won eventually. That's what leads to fascism and neo-Nazism. I just prefer to say National Socialism. Now, could a person from those philosophies get to that place? Yeah, in theory, yeah, of course. But I don't think the philosophies themselves make the person do it. I just think I think individuals choose to go down that path for whatever reason. I think it is just if you go towards a more collectivist leftist stance, you'll either become one of those two or a communist. It's that simple. It's all leftism. Now, the NRX and Dark Enlightenment are not strictly speaking leftist, but some of them are for sure. Some of the people within those movements are not right wing. They claim they are, but they're not. Not by my metric anyway. And there is a lot of concerning things a lot of these people are putting out there on Twitter, which suggests to me that these people are not going towards neo-Nazism and fascism, because if they did, they'd be even more irrelevant, but they're heading more towards communism. I mean, AA, for example, he's a grifter anyway, so it is what it is, but he's pushing Stalin love. Like he was promoting Stalinism on Twitter. He's meant to be the most right-wing person ever, yet he's promoting Stalin. Why? And also the rehabilitation of people like Lenin and Mao by certain figures like Evelyn, for example. Like it's not enough. It's not just enough to steal their tactics, like what Lucian from Freedom Alternative does, or what Racefist advocates for America, right? For the MAGA people to do. But to rehabilitate these people and say they're based and we should admire these people, which ends up eventually taking other ideas that you otherwise would not take. Yeah, that leads to communism. It feels to me like they're heading more towards communism than they are Nazism and fascism, and I don't know if they're even aware of it. They've certainly been subverted and infiltrated by Duginists, who are, those of you who want to know, basically it's National Bolshevism. They've already been subverted by these people and they don't even know it. And I've warned them for ages now and they just don't listen to me. But it's happened. This is why you're seeing more lefty collectivist takes from them. And basically what's happened is in order to be contrarian against the current thing, they've gone down that path. And well, some of them anyway, not all of them. And it's going to bite him in the ass. And the thing is, what they don't even realize is being against the current thing for the sake of it, being a contrarian, is also a meme. That's another problem. Yeah, the German model's all right, actually, from what I've seen in terms of healthcare. I need to get that Christian Niemitz book about healthcare. Because it's not a free market. It's not. Well, it is free market. It's kind of free market, but not. I don't know. I think it could be a good transitionary period, transition model towards a more freer model. But all this free shit targeted to it's not just women, really, to be honest. There's a lot of men in this country that are for the NHS and the welfare state and stuff like that. It was men who pushed it, to be fair, James. I mean, yeah, that is a big part of it. It's not just that. Yeah, Thatcher didn't change it. Thatcher did a lot of. Thatcher was nowhere near the evil, free enterprise Reaganite type that the left thinks she was. She really wasn't. Again, I don't think you're wrong. I just think that's part of it, And yeah, there's always a cost to everything, and that's something that Friedman, not David, and he said David, Milton, but David would say it too. There's a cost for everything, as Milton said. No such thing as a free. Was it no such thing as a free school meal? No, something like that. Whatever his famous phrase was. But yeah. So Lee, to get back on topic, no, I don't think they are gateways to neo-Nazism and fascism. I mean, for some people, they'll say it is, but really, I don't think it's a gateway. I mean, technically speaking, the anti-SJW thing was a gateway to communism because a lot of them ended up going into BreadTube and things like that. They became commies after Trump got elected. Arguably, I don't like the idea of this thing and that thing being a gateway. I don't think it's a thing. I think, there are avenues you can take in your intellectual journey, right? And if you choose to go down the path of collectivism, well, so be it. I can't stop you. If you're dead set on it, I wouldn't necessarily blame the Dark Enlightenment authors or anything for that, because some of them were fervent anti-fascists and communists, That's it. No such thing as a free lunch. But luckily, we talk about the quote-unquote dissident, right? And we talk about the alt-right and we talk about libertarianism and stuff like that. But the thing is that the right is a huge thing, and it's made of loads of tiny little factions or big ones that we're not aware of. And yeah. Part of that was in the video that I forgot the subject of. I think it was. I can't remember it, but basically, part of my point was in the video was that look, this thing is bigger than any of. I think it was about. Oh yes, I remember it now. It was about how Russian and Chinese propaganda takes advantage of right wingers' envy towards their countries, because there's a lot of people from the Dark Enlightenment. What a spurgy name for a movement, the Dark Enlightenment. Jesus Christ, it's like a bloody Star Trek villain. It's like the Mirror Universe, isn't it? That's how cringe is it? I'm sorry, it's so bad. Like intellectual dark web, that's cringe as well. I don't know what you guys think, but they're pretty cringy and spurgy titles. They should just not have come up with a name. That's somebody fishing for a name like Enlightenment. We're against the Enlightenment. Dark Enlightenment. Whoa, Mirror Universe shit like Star Trek. Oh God, I need to get back on topic. Yeah, so the right is bigger than just our groups, and it's bigger than just our countries. The culture war is bigger than just us in our countries and in the West. It's everywhere. It has consumed the world because we're in a globalized world, remember? Like it may affect some countries less than others. Like Tanzania is probably not as affected much as, say, France is, but it's still affected. There's still ramifications of policy in America or Russia or wherever that will impact them, You know what I mean? And I feel like certain people, and it's not just the Dark Enlightenment types, it's also the Tory types, the Tory boys. Some of them have fallen into this, and I keep trying to tell them, like, look, it is not your little corners of the internet that is the whole right. So when these people go on about, oh, you're trying to split up the right, oh, why are you punching right? You're going to ruin everything. And it's like, well, You guys do realize that you're on a little tiny corner of Twitter usually, arguing amongst yourselves. To the rest of the world, you're just what, like 10, 15 people, 100 maybe at most, arguing amongst themselves over stuff. Like, you are not the right. You are part of it. Or even the left. I reckon even BreadTube thinks they're the whole left when they're not, you know. I bet even the non-BreadTubey types, like the grey zone there, those bloody Chicom tanky types, also think they're the whole left, or at least their little civil war is, No one is kowtowing to the one-party state. The mono party, yeah. Although in Britain we don't really have a mono party because there's enough differences between the Tories and Labour that they will never work together on anything. But in America, you will see Republicans and Democrats work together, which is weird. Over here, not so much. Only when it's absolutely necessary to get rid of a really bad prime minister will they vote together. But yeah, it's bigger than all of us. I've been saying this for years. I've said it before I was on this channel. When I was on the other one, I said that this is bigger than all of us. There's people who speak different languages who don't speak English in Spain or France or Germany or Italy who aren't aware of Sargon, who aren't aware of me or you guys, who are talking about the exact same stuff. And we don't know each other. We don't know of each other for whatever reason. This thing is massive. This is a civilizational thing right now that we're in. And it's not going to end anytime soon either. I even said, even back then, as it dawned on me that it was bigger than Gamergate, that this could last decades. And that was before I understood how culture wars work and how culture progresses and stuff like that. Even then I was saying, the bigger political thing, this could take years. We could be, I think I said I could be in my 30s or 40s and it might just end. Now I don't know. Now I think it might be my 60s and I might start to see the beginning of the end. I might be wrong. The internet is speeding up change, but we're in it for the long haul, guys. This is why I'm against the whole black pilling thing and against giving up. I mean, some of you wouldn't have seen this tweet. It probably got buried, not because of censorship. It probably just got buried in the the feed. But when I was out today, I was trying to go to the post office, but Google lied. I was wrong about the. They didn't lie. They were wrong about the closing time, and there was quite a lot of stuff going on. So there were these animal rights activists who do their dumb display in Market Street, and there was a Hare Krishna group. Well, Finian, Carl is not a classical liberal anymore by the look of it, so you're all right. But the thing is, if you don't like the liberal ethos, at least classical liberal, if that's what you mean, I don't know why you're here with me. I don't know why you watch me, because I'm a much more red-pilled version of that. So, I'm the type of liberal that he wants to see. So, don't believe in the blank slate, don't believe in equality, stuff like that, that kind of thing, right? At the very least, I do agree with the sentiment of, what the founding fathers were actually saying, because he got, as an aside, I'm going off topic. I will get back to this point. The whole all men created equal, it's a religious thing, it's Christianity. It's in the eyes of God or in the eyes of the law, the rule of law, we're all equal. I can get behind that because it's not literal equality. It's, look, in the grand scheme of things, that's how it works. But yeah, he didn't understand that for some reason. But anyway, shit, I need to get back to where I was at. Yeah, so I was going through all these places, and I saw, I saw some commies, some people's assembly, and I'm like, you aren't the people. And trust me, it was hardly anyone. It was at least 100, 200 people. Again, like I say, the commies are not that big in most cities. Trust me. Again, they could barely fill out Piccadilly Gardens. And then over in the corner near one of the big statues, it might have been near Victoria actually. There was a Ukrainian gathering. Talk about the war, and we all have our opinions on it. but there was a few lads who stood out. They were. I saw them from a distance because it stood out with the flags they were carrying. They weren't carrying Ukrainian flags. They were carrying Hong Kong flags, but not just any old flag. It was the colonial flag. And I said to them, I couldn't go and talk to them properly because there was a speech going on. I just said, keep up the good fight. And it got me thinking, that's all we can do. As I was walking away, I was like, it's better to be free. I'm going to paraphrase Jimmy Cliff, so forgive me. It's better to be free in your grave than to be alive and be a puppet or a slave, basically. And all you can do is fight. If you just give up and go back to your house and sit there and play video games or read books or just moan online, well, that's the coward's way out. I remember it also got me thinking about, it was somebody quoting another person, but I'm going to paraphrase it. I don't know where it came from, but basically some person said that nations and peoples survive all odds when they go down fighting, basically. So your culture will survive, your people will survive, as long as you keep fighting. If you go down fighting, if you just never, basically don't surrender, or at the very least, if you're forced to surrender, you gave a good account of yourself, and that means you've got honor, and it's still there. You can still recover and fight another day, basically. And I think that's what we need on the right. We need that mindset, but I don't see it in a lot of places. I think it's growing, but it's growing too slow, and there's too many people who are jaded and giving up, or people who were never interested in doing anything ever anyway, because they make money off of moaning and problems that they know should be addressed and solved, but they don't want to be solved because then they wouldn't make money. We're under the protection of cowards who keep appeasing the enemy. Yeah, there is, but we have to get rid of those cowards. It's an overused cliche, but what did Churchill do in the 40s? He got rid of the appeasers. I mean, to be fair, the appeasers were destroyed by their own policy, but ultimately, he kept banging the drum about how Hitler was not what he's seen, that we shouldn't appease, we should arm ourselves as early as possible. And he kept doing it. And eventually he was proven right. His resolve never wavered. And these people got replaced. To be fair, when your whole policy collapses right in front of your face, but still, there were some people, even in 1940, like, well, maybe we should not do this. Like, no, they were physically removed, so to speak. They were put to the back benches. That's what we should do with those cowards. We should physically remove them. But if we don't, we'll continue being led by them. I don't like the fucking founding fathers for being traitors, but that's what they did. They thought that the leadership in this country was lacking, so they got rid of us. That's what we should do. Locking the next section down with mail-in votes and locks. What is that, America, Servo Skull? Because I don't know. Well, I don't know. I think you're wrong because I've been watching a lot of American commentators, and I know for a fact a lot of the states, at least the ones that aren't cooked or they're not fully blue anyway, like Arizona, for example, have been passing legislation to fix their election issues and stuff like that. So watch more Razorfist, mate. Trust me, you will see that the next election won't be as bad as you think, mate. I don't get why people like you, Mitch, are talking about problems in society yet you won't address the elephant in the room. It's the I literally just talked about the elephant in the room for the past hour and 29 minutes, Tyler. Only I don't call it liberalism like you do. I don't know if you're American. I don't know if you're a Brit that's influenced by American culture, but for me, that's cultural Marxism. That's communism. I've done nothing but address that for the past 8 years now. since 2014, really. So you're chatting shit there, mate. I don't know why you're saying that I don't address the elephant in the room when I do. Only I don't call it liberalism because it's not. And until you learn how to actually call a spade, then you're the one who's ignoring the elephant in the room by calling it a euphemism, a name that it's not, a name that it adopted to hide under. Because the reason why you Americans and increasingly more Brits call communism liberalism or progressivism, anyway, I don't know, is because they in the 1930s and 40s co-opted that word to hide under to become electable, to become to become I can't think of the word, to not fashionable, but make themselves more palatable to the people, at least in America. And then slowly but surely, because Americanization is a real thing, it's happened over here. Now people just say, oh, it's the liberal world order, it's the liberal democracy. I still don't know what a liberal democracy even is, but it's not that. We don't live in a liberal world order. We live in a cultural Marxist one. Or at least, that's what we live in. And if we lived in the liberal order, it was in the 19th century or the early 20th century. We don't live in one now. We haven't since World War One. Liberalism lost that battle in the 1910s, and unless it gets a software update and comes back stronger with people willing to fight for it, then it will never come back. We will still be in this collectivist hellhole. Being lib to me is you do you, I do me. Let's not. Yeah, well, that's libertarianism now. We call it libertarianism, but yeah, essentially, yeah, I agree. That's what it used to be. But yeah, I've been addressing that elephant in the room for years. I don't buy that. That's crap. I don't know where you got that from, mate. But whatever. I think I've been going on a little bit too long now. It's 10 o'clock and I've got to get up. Well, it's nearly 10 o'clock and I've got to get up in the morning to the post office and collect some parcels. So anyway, guys, I wish I could shout and do a good razor fist ending rant, but I'm all outranted now, unfortunately. It was good to stream with you all, and I hope to stream again at some point. I don't know when. I might do so on Monday. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, now I know who you are. I know who you are, Servo Skull. You've changed your name. Hope to see you all next time. It's been your boy, and I'll see you all laters.